Japan's adoption of the XRP ledger, could it lead to a massive price boom over the next few months? Also, Japan is going to approve yen-backed stablecoins on blockchain. So we start to wonder, what technology is this going to be built on? Or is it going to be built on a host of different technologies? We're going to explore all of the connections between Japan, Ripple, and of course XRP in this video, guys. I got a lot of really great content to go over with you. Let's dive in and better understand what's going on here. So we have a community post from Deanna. Deanna says, could Japan's XRP adoption ignite a $22 price explosion? Korea made XRP a powerhouse. If Japan follows, the global market won't just move, it could detonate. September Seoul doubleheader may trigger the liquidity shockwave XRP has been waiting for. Korea, the sleeping giant that woke XRP, population around 53 million is what they're saying here. 7 million active XRP users, 13% of the population, 20% of global XRP volume, 500 to 700 million daily flow. Now, I did need to just fact check some of this information here, and just to give you some ideas, the wallet count is a little off here. Active wallets in South Korea reports indicate around 7.1 million wallets registered or associated with Korean users on exchange. However, this figure includes all wallets. Many are duplicates, many holding very small or zero balances. Just want to give you that extra bit of information. Japan, the multiplier that could break markets. Japan's 125 million population, Korea's 13% adoption ratio, it would equal 16 million XRP users in Japan. That's a 2.3 Korea's firepower. Daily potential 1.1 to 1.4 billion XRP volume. The combined shockwave, Korea 500 to 700 million a day and Japan's 1.1 to 1.4 billion a day. Together, they would make 1.6 billion to 2.1 billion daily retail liquidity. Add institutional ODL corridors on top, and the supply squeeze becomes brutal. What does this mean for XRP's price? History shows when XRP volume doubles, price doesn't creep, they explode. If timing aligns with the September-November rally window, before events $5, after events 8 to 10, with ETF and institutional flows $12 to $22 by the end of the year. Also, September equals XRP's double nuclear catalyst. September 21st, XRP Seoul 2025 is an event that I hope you can attend. Ripple executive is SBI, XRP Ledger Labs, and new corridors, treasury adoption or ODL expansion. So they're going to maybe have some new announcements here that we're going to be bringing to you live on this channel when we get them. September 22nd and 28th, Korea Blockchain Week, Asia's loudest blockchain megaphone, global spotlight on XRP, to back-to-back stage time, back-to-back liquidity shockwaves. SBI Holdings, Japan's trump card, Ripple's top ally in Asia, runs SBI Remit and SBI VC Trade, already connects Japan and SIA corridors, can flip the switch on Japan and Korea XRP payments overnight. Dan is saying this isn't just a theory. The rails already exist. The global ripple effect, when Korea plus Japan sync up, Western traders chase the rally, order books thin out, supply crunch sends XRP vertical. Korea struck the match, Japan could light the rocket. Is Japan about to push XRP into the $20 range? Let's go ahead and take a listen to the Paul Barron here. I did want to mention that obviously if you get a big demand of new users coming in, new volume, that definitely is going to have a positive effect on XRP's price. I would imagine that there's people already in Japan who own XRP. So you don't just wake up and have a full population of 16% just going to use something drastic would need to happen, like the government saying, for instance, we're going to issue a government stablecoin on Ripple CBDC technology. Now that could be a game changer if something like that should occur. Now, I do think you will see yen-backed stablecoins on a host of different blockchains eventually here. I'd imagine the XRP ledger, I'd imagine Ethereum, just to name like the two obvious ones in my eyes. But you let me know down in the comments what other blockchains you think you will see yen-backed stablecoins. I'd imagine sooner or later it's going to be on most all of them as currencies develop. Because, you know, whenever, like in the US, obviously we want the US dollar to do well. If we still remain the world reserve currency, Americans enjoy that status around the world. We can take our dollars anywhere and spend them. Other countries want their currencies to be in the spotlight as well. So I'd imagine that you're going to have digital euros, you're going to have digital pounds, digital Swiss francs, digital yens, and every other currency that you can imagine of. Let's go ahead and play this Paul Barron clip. Japan lowers XRP taxes. Is the USA next? Let's play it.
Japan, you have to think about SBI. SBI is one of the biggest companies out there. And one of the reasons why is their commitment and has been behind Ripple. And they continue to grow. They currently hold 9% share based on their actual holdings of XRP. Their stockholders are saying, hey, don't sell the XRP, our stock will go down. We need to get more, so the stock continues to rise. So a lot happening right there. And then if you look at their CEO, every bank in Japan will use Ripple's XRP by 2020.
Listen, this has been Crypto Erie, who's based in Japan, came out and said that this was a misrepresentation of what was said here. Just want to let you guys know that that's how I understand it. This was actually not said in the way that this was said. All banks in Japan will use XRP by 2025. Just think about this. All banks in a country is going to use something like anything. Chances are one technology will not remain supreme across the entire network. Now, if you get 25% adoption, 50% adoption, that is insane numbers and figures. Imagine every single bank deciding to wake up one day and using XRP. I just don't think that's a reality, but you can let me know if I'm crazy down in the comments.
Now, I don't know if they're referencing end of 2025 or what was, but this was a big headline that they've been touting for quite some time. All right, so this they've been
April 28, 2022. Okay, nothing suspect.
So this FinTech Summit happened just the other day, and you can take a look at some of the speakers here. One of the key speakers is the digital minister, who by chance had met with Brad Garlinghouse right there. If you take a look, met in Tokyo this week. Their leaders are committed to advancing crypto and blockchain technology. So you can see there is clear connection of what's happening within the Japanese regulators and also with what's going on with Ripple in general. I want to also go over to this right here because this is another thing that's happening, and this is Sony's bank wall. All right, let's go over
really quickly. Oh wait, did they bypass that? Hold on.
To another article. This was from You Today, and it's talking about Ripple meeting with the Japanese officials, and a couple of points within this. This was back in September, but if you look further in here, this is where they were meeting specifically with Tyra. Right there. So you can kind of see that this has been planned for some time. And they were talking about a project. If you further on down in the article, this program will be titled Project PAX. So it's going to be run by Progmat, Data Chain, Toki. One other note is...
All right, let's keep going here. You do see Brad Garlinghouse. This was the picture that Paul Barron was just referring to. They actually clipped it here, but here's Monica Long as well. And I know this guy works for Ripple. I just can't remember this dude's name. I do apologize. But Emi Yoshikawa, she's been a vital piece of the puzzle in Japan for Ripple's adoption. So great to see that. Eric Van Venem is the guy's name. I do apologize. All right. This is a clip that came out maybe like 6 months, 8 months ago, something of that, time frame. Excuse me, August 2026. It came out a year ago. Oh my God, time flies. But this was a very interesting conversation. You got to understand that banks in Japan have been on ISO and working in this area for quite some time. They knew this next evolution of payments was going to be in the blockchain space. And so banks, especially in Japan, have been testing the XRP ledger. And this says it all right here.
Actually, Japan is a very, very cash-oriented society.
Surprisingly.
Yeah. People think we are kind of advanced, but by the way, I come from Japan. But the percentage of digital payments of all the transactions is actually only 19%. So it's actually kind of national agenda to increase digital payments. And the government encourage banks to innovate so that they can increase digital payments ratio. So now what we are doing in Japan is we created a consortium of more than 50 banks to come together to develop a completely new payments platform or infrastructure powered by Ripple's distributed ledger technology, which basically replaces the existing domestic payments system called the Zengin system, and also can be applied for cross-border payments as well.
And that contrasts with Zelle, which is a fantastic
payments platform or infrastructure, more than 50 banks.
More than 50 banks. That's what I started thinking about something and my mind went somewhere else really quickly. I do apologize. That's the curse. More than 50 banks, right? We've looked this up a bunch of times. There's about 200 banks in Japan. Of course, there's branches all across Japan. I'm sure people that live in Japan can let me know if the number is correct. I looked at Perplexity and Google and a few other places and about 200 banks. But if you're having 50 banks, that's 1/4 of all of the banks that were in this test. And we know that there's been other testing and other sandboxes and other consortiums with higher levels of banks in Japan. So we know a high level of banks understand the technology, have tested the technology, and I would imagine like the technology. You've got to remember, SBI has great reach in that region, in Japan and all over Asia. So when they are bullish on something, right? When Yoshitaka Kitao, who's the chairman of SBI, when he was a early investor in Ripple and he's an early investor into XRP, and they built all this technology around the XRP ledger, they know how important it is. Okay. And then Ratha Kahneman says, as of May, SBI Holdings reports that they are in active discussions to handle RLUSD and SBI VC trade. They speak of Ripple payments using XRP still. It's still would be interesting to see what happens for them if and when JPY stablecoin becomes online. And so we just are going to talk about that, right? It is coming online now. This Ratha Kahneman posted this way back in, posted last month, July 2025, but I think this is a little bit older of a document. You know, goes back, invested in Ripple in 2016, holds 9% of its shares. And then Chad Steingraber posted this today. Japan will use RLUSD and RLYEN, all of Japan XRP. And so this is a little bit more information. I said, I did want to get some additional information on this. So I loaded it into Perplexity, of course, because that's what we do. We want to better understand the context and how this could impact, of course, our holdings. So potential implications for Ripple and XRP, increased integration opportunities. Ripple specializes in cross-border payments and often aims to work with regulated digital assets, stablecoins, and central bank digital currencies. If regulated yen stablecoins become widely used, RippleNet could integrate support for these assets, expanding its network offerings for businesses and financial institutions dealing in yen denominated transactions. Enhanced liquidity for XRP. XRP is designed as a bridge asset that provides liquidity for cross-currency and cross-border payments. The introduction and adoption of regulated yen stablecoins creates new corridors for Ripple's on-demand liquidity product, enabling more efficient conversions between yen stablecoins and other assets, potentially increasing XRP transaction volumes for Japan-related remittances. Remember, if this is built on top of the XRP ledger, and you're using these yen-backed stablecoins, if it's on the XRP ledger, you will need XRP for those transactions, right? Stablecoins are going to be beneficial for domestic payments. When you go cross-border, that's when a bridge asset could come in handy, because you're probably going multi-currency, whether it's, you know, the Japanese yen to US dollars or vice versa, or yen to Great British pounds or yen to euros. You need something in between to make that switch. And that is where XRP's, you know, true utility shines. And I think that's what most people can understand. When you try to have someone explain, you know, what Bitcoin is or what Ethereum does, people are, you know, okay, smart contracts, right? You know, but if you talk about a bridge asset, that more people can understand XRP's utility, I think, than understanding what Ethereum could do. That's just my feeling. You let me know down in the comments if I'm crazy or if you agree. Competitive dynamics and SWIFT with stablecoins. A reference to SWIFT statistics acknowledges the strategic role of yen in the global payments. Ripple and XRP have positioned themselves as alternatives and complements to the SWIFT system, especially for cross-border settlements. With regulated yen stablecoins emerging, Ripple may have opportunities to demonstrate faster settlement times, lower cost, and better transparency compared to legacy methods, potentially partnering with or even competing against new yen stablecoin projects. So we'll have to see like where this stuff gets built out. Regulatory process like Japan's licensing for JPYC and recognition of stablecoins further legitimizes blockchain-based assets in payments industry. Ripple focuses on compliance and regulatory clarity, aligns well with the region's support for regulated stablecoins, potential boosting XRP's adoption. And we do know that mega banks like Citi, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, SBI are all moving forward with their own technology in the blockchain space. I'd imagine SBI will build either future products on the XRP ledger or XDC. I know they're very fond of both of those networks. JP Morgan, of course, is building on Ethereum, Citibank, the regulated liability network, and then Goldman Sachs. We'll see how all of that comes out. And then that's it, guys. Let me know what you think. You know, actually, we are starting to get more and more Japanese people in Japan watching the channel. So I love you. Arigato. Is it arigato gozaimasu? I don't know. I try to watch a few movies. I don't think I picked that up well, but I tried. I'm trying. Have a great day. Nice to see you. Bye. I have just built a course for beginners, intermediaries, and experts of XRP to better understand the XRP ledger and Ripple, the company. If you're interested in getting that course absolutely free, there's a link down in the description. Please let me know what you think after you've taken the course. Aloha.